So the GPT-5 launch has finally happened, and to say it's been a chaotic and controversial release would be the understatement of the year. For the better part of a year, the entire tech world has been holding its breath, waiting for OpenAI to once again redefine what's possible with artificial intelligence. The expectation wasn't just for an update, it was for a revolution. And yet, now that it's here, the overwhelming sentiment online can be boiled down to one word: disappointment. Some people are calling it an uninspired, marginal upgrade. Others are claiming it's a deliberate downgrade, a bait and switch designed to save OpenAI money. But then you have the defenders, the people saying this is a subtle but strategic shift that everyone is missing. In this video, we're going to cut through all of that noise. We're going to look at the numbers, the benchmarks, and see how GPT-5 really stacks up against the new king of the hill, Grok 4. We'll dive into the insane hype train that set this launch up for failure from the very beginning, and we'll look at what people on X and Reddit are actually saying. But most importantly, we're going to tackle the big existential question that this release has forced into the open. Are we finally hitting the wall with large language models? Is this the end of the era of exponential progress? Because what most people are missing is that this isn't just about one flawed product launch. It's about a fundamental shift in the entire AI landscape. First, let's talk about the hype. You can't understand the disappointment without understanding the absolutely stratospheric expectations that were set for GPT-5. For years, OpenAI has operated on a predictable and frankly astonishing cadence. GPT-3 was magic. Then GPT 3.5, which powered the original ChatGPT, brought that magic to the world. Then came GPT-4, a model so powerful and so far ahead of everything else that it felt like a generational leap. It established OpenAI as the undisputed king of AI. The natural assumption, the one everyone in the industry had, was that GPT-5 would continue that trend. It wouldn't just be better, it would be mind-blowingly better. The rumor mill was in overdrive. We heard whispers of models that could reason with the complexity of a PhD, that had near-perfect long-term memory, that were, for all intents and purposes, a significant step towards AGI. And OpenAI's own leadership did nothing to temper these expectations. In fact, they fanned the flames. You guys probably remember those cryptic posts from Sam Altman, pictures of a Death Star looming over a planet, tweets that hinted at something almost scary in its power. The subtext was clear: you are not ready for what we're about to show you. The entire industry was primed for a moment that would feel like the iPhone reveal of AI. We were expecting a new paradigm. We were expecting the future to arrive, right on schedule. And with that level of anticipation, anything less than a miracle was going to feel like a failure. And that's exactly what happened. So, what are people actually saying? The moment GPT-5 was made available, the feedback started pouring in, and it was brutal. I've spent days scrolling through the ChatGPT subreddit and X, and the sentiment is almost universally negative among the power users. One developer on X posted, "I'm not crazy, right? My coding prompts that worked perfectly on GPT-4o are now failing consistently on GPT-5. It's less creative and it makes dumber mistakes." Another user, a writer, said it's like they took away its soul. The personality is gone. I used to be able to brainstorm with it. Now it just gives me sterile, corporate-approved lists. It feels lobotomized. That word lobotomized comes up a lot. It perfectly captures the feeling that something has been taken away. The most common theory, the one you see everywhere, is that this is a cost-saving measure. The argument is that OpenAI, now serving hundreds of millions of users, simply can't afford to run its most expensive, most powerful models for everyone. So they release something they call GPT-5, but in reality, it's a heavily optimized, cheaper, and ultimately less capable model designed to handle massive scale. It's a powerful narrative because it feels true. It aligns with the classic tech company playbook: hook users with an amazing product, and then slowly degrade the experience to increase profit margins. People feel betrayed. They feel like the tool they fell in love with has been replaced by a cheap imitation, and they're being told to celebrate it as an upgrade. And that's the core of the emotional outlash. It's not just a technical complaint, it's a feeling of being misled. Okay, so we've heard the emotional reactions, but this is where things get really interesting. Because we have to ask, what do the actual objective numbers say? This is where we get into the benchmark battlefield. For those of you who don't know, benchmarks are standardized tests designed to measure an AI's performance on a range of tasks, from graduate level exams to complex coding problems. For a long time, these were OpenAI's trump card. With every new release, they would publish a chart showing their new model absolutely demolishing every competitor and the old version of itself across the board. And if you look at the official GPT-5 launch presentation, they tried to do the same thing. They showed charts where, yes, technically GPT-5 scores a few percentage points higher than GPT-4o on standard benchmarks like MMLU. It is technically smarter on paper. But here's the problem, and it's a huge one. The gains are marginal. We're not seeing the 20, 30, 40-point leaps we saw before. We're seeing single-digit improvements. And when a model only improves by, say, 5% on a benchmark, but its personality and user experience feels 50% worse, the user is going to perceive it as a downgrade, regardless of what the chart says. And let's talk about those charts because OpenAI made a critical, unforced error during their live stream. They presented this bizarre stacked bar chart to show off performance on a software engineering benchmark. It was so confusing and poorly designed that people on X immediately started calling it a chart crime. It looked like they were deliberately trying to obscure the data to make a small improvement look like a massive leap. When you have to resort to misleading visuals to prove your new model is better, it tells the audience that you don't have the confidence to let the numbers speak for themselves. It was a massive marketing blunder that just added fuel to the fire. It made them look weak and, frankly, a little desperate. Now, while OpenAI was fumbling its presentation, something else was happening in the background. A new champion was being crowned on one of the most difficult AI benchmarks in the world. And it wasn't from OpenAI. I'm talking, of course, about Grok 4. For a long time, Elon Musk's XAI was seen as a bit of a sideshow, not a serious contender. But that has changed dramatically. We need to talk about a benchmark called ArcAGI-2. This isn't your standard multiple choice test. It's designed to measure abstract reasoning, the kind of fluid intelligence that is incredibly difficult for AIs. It's considered by many researchers, including its creator Francois Chollet, to be one of the best proxies we have for true problem solving. Just a few days after the GPT-5 launch, Chollet posted the updated leaderboard, and at the very top, in a league of its own, was Grok 4 with a score of 15.9%. Down below it, trailing by a significant margin, was GPT-5 with a score of just 9.9%. Let that sink in. On one of the hardest, most respected tests of AI reasoning, Grok 4 isn't just a little bit better, it's over 50% better. This is the first time in the modern AI era that a major frontier benchmark has shown a non-OpenAI model to be so clearly superior. This completely shatters the narrative of OpenAI's untouchable lead. It proves that other labs have not only caught up, but in some critical areas of intelligence, they've surpassed them. The king, it seems, is no longer secure on his throne. The competition is real, it is fierce, and for the first time, OpenAI looks like it's playing defense. Which brings us to the big question, the one that's hanging over this entire conversation. Are we hitting a wall? The disappointing launch of GPT-5 isn't happening in a vacuum. It's happening at a time when many researchers are openly talking about the law of diminishing returns in scaling these models. For years, the formula was simple. More data, more compute, more parameters equals a smarter model. But that formula seems to be breaking down. We are now pouring exponentially more resources into training these models for increasingly smaller gains. The low-hanging fruit has been picked. LLMs have mastered the surface-level statistics of language. They can write a decent email, summarize a report, and generate code. But the next frontier, true reasoning, common sense, and understanding the world, is proving to be a much, much harder problem to solve. Simply making the models bigger isn't working anymore. And this, I think, is the real story behind the GPT-5 debacle. OpenAI knows this. They know that the days of quantum leaps are likely over for the time being. Their entire strategy has had to shift. They are no longer a pure research lab singularly focused on pushing the state-of-the-art. They are now a multi-billion-dollar product company, and that comes with a completely different set of priorities. Their focus is shifting from how do we build the smartest possible model to how do we build the most useful, safe, and cost-effective product for a billion users. This is why we saw the personality changes. The sycophantic GPT-4o, while fun for some, was a liability for a company trying to sell to enterprise customers who need predictable, neutral, and safe outputs. The neutered personality of GPT-5 isn't a bug, it's a feature designed for a corporate audience. This is why we're seeing them focus on cost optimization. Running the absolute best model for every single free user is financially unsustainable. The auto switcher bug revealed their strategy. Use a router to send most queries to cheaper, faster models, and only use the expensive, powerful reasoning for the hardest tasks. Sam Altman himself basically admitted this months ago. In an interview, he was asked what would be more valuable in 5 years, a state-of-the-art model or a destination site with a billion daily active users. His answer was immediate: the 1 billion user site, I think. That tells you everything you need to know. OpenAI's primary goal is no longer just AGI research. It's building an unshakable product mode. They want ChatGPT to be the Google of AI, the default interface for the world, regardless of whether the model under the hood is always the absolute best. So, to wrap it all up, the disappointment around GPT-5 wasn't just about a single bad model. So, to wrap it all up, the disappointment around GPT-5 wasn't just about a single bad model. It was the result of a perfect storm, an insane hype cycle that set impossible expectations, a botched technical rollout that made the product feel worse than it was, and a strategic pivot in personality that alienated many of its most loyal users. But underneath it all is the bigger truth. The era of easy progress in AI might be ending. We're now in a world of fierce competition, marginal gains, and a shift from pure research to practical, profitable products. OpenAI is no longer just competing with other models on benchmarks. They're competing for market share, for enterprise contracts, and for a permanent place in our digital lives. They are playing a different game now. The question is whether their users are willing to play along. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is this just a temporary setback for OpenAI, or is this the moment the AI race truly opened up? I think the next 6 months are going to be the most important in AI history.